Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I'm going to do is just do an overview of how to use Netlify functions. Now what Netlify functions are, it's an abstraction over AWS Lambda. And just to kind of talk about what that is, AWS Lambda is what's called a serverless function provider. Now what a serverless function is, the idea is that usually if you need like a backend for your website, you would have to build your own sort of web server and deploy it, and that you'd make API calls to that persistent server. Now the thing is, that server has to be running all the time, and you're paying for that web hosting, which you could deploy on something like Amazon's EC2 or any kind of VPS provider like Linode or DigitalOcean. But again, you're paying to have a persistent server running when maybe that backend functionality is only needed a very fraction of the time. So what AWS Lambda does is it allows you to define sort of backend type activity that only occurs when a certain event happens. So essentially, you don't have an actual server, but you still have the ability to code things that a server would do, and they would only happen when an event happens. So on Amazon, it can get really complicated. It could be like when you upload a file to different, like to Amazon's S3, or all sorts of different things that could trigger that event, which is really cool. At its simplest, it could just be someone makes a request to a URL. And that's kind of what Netlify builds for you. They kind of build this simplified version of AWS Lambda that you can use to provide back-end functionality to your Netlify projects, which are typically sort of front-end based. So this makes serverless functions a lot more accessible to many projects, and it's a nice stepping stone working your way to AWS Lambda. Another cool tool for that purpose is something called the serverless framework. I'm not going to go over that today, but that is also very cool. So what we're going to do is, first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new project. So let's see here. I want to go to my development folder. That's the folder I have with all my coding stuff. And then I have a teaching folder. Let me just, it's called teaching. Yep, CD teaching. This is my folder of where I do teaching projects. And we're going to have a folder called Netlify Funk. And we're going to build our project here. So I'm going to go CD into Netlify Funk, and I'm going to open this up in VS Code. Okay, so first things first, we're just going to create a basic HTML file, index.html, and we're just going to basically say HTML5 hello world. So right now it's going to be real simple. We'll come back to this. H1 hello world. Okay, because that's not really what matters. Now what I want to do is create a couple other folders in here. One I'm going to call functions. That's where we're going to actually put the code for our functions. And then another folder, okay, called Lambda. That's going to be where our compiled functions end up. Okay. Now, I'm also going to do a git ignore file while I'm at it. .git ignore, because I am going to have to get node modules involved, and I don't want to bring that up. So node modules. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to run my terminal. Okay, and I'll just start up a new project, npm init-y. Beep. And then I need to install. Now, if you haven't already, you should install Netlify dev. So that'd be like npm install -g. I think it's like Netlify dev. I forget what the, let me do just a quick search on that. What would that be? What would be the install command for that? Do. Ah, here we go. it would be Netlify CLI. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to install it again, but you need that. And then once you have that installed, you'll log into it by typing in Netlify login. And that will log you into the Netlify CLI tool. Very similar to the Heroku CLI tool, which we'll use more later on. But also you need the Netlify Lambda package for this particular project. That you don't install globally, that you want to install per project. So npmi Netlify Lambda. Okay. There we go. That installs that. And basically that's going to install that. Good. And I'm going to want to run a script here called build. Okay. And what I want is to write Netlify Lambda build, and I want it to build whatever's in the functions folder. Okay, cool. And what I need is another file called Netlify Toml. Toml stands for Tom's Obvious Markup Language. It's a very simple markup language. And basically we can use this for setting up some configurations. Okay, so we're going to do build. This just basically gives instructions for what to do when the build command is run. Okay, command is going to equal npm run build, because we just did the build script. So to build the functions, you're going to run that. The functions will be served out of the Lambda folder. So basically when it gets built, it will get built into the Lambda folder. So /Lambda. Okay. I think I just need to do that. And as far as the published website just for Netlify to serve, when it's all said and done, that'll just be served out of the root. It's just that index.html, so nothing crazy there. Okay, now we're going to also run the dev command later on to serve this. So I'm just going to say that's going to happen on port 9000. Why not? Again, publish / and that's going to be where the files are coming out of. Command npm run dev, and I need to define that script, and that's going to be back in node modules, back in package.json. So let's define another script, and that's going to be dev Netlify Lambda serve. I think I just have to leave it like that. I think I still have to. I'll leave it like that for now. Cool. And I think that's good for the time being. Okay. Okie dokie. Now what we're going to do is create a new function. So I'm going to go cd into my functions folder. And I'm going to type in this command, Netlify functions create and it's going to bring up a whole bunch of templates. Okay, I'm just going to do the basic hello world template. Boop. And I'm going to put a name for my function. We'll just say, yeah, why not, hello world. Okay, and see this creates this folder. See, it puts it in the Lambda folder. I don't want it in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this file right here, and I'm going to move it all the way up to my functions folder, because this is where it expects the files right now. So I'm going to just delete all that with the trash. Okay. And then here's basically the code for a basic function. Okay, so it's exports.handler. This is an async one, so you can use async await. And this one's pretty straightforward. Okay, it's basically just taking the query string parameters. If you were to pass one in, okay, if you pass in a parameter called name, and would say whatever world, or it'll basically default to world if there is no query string, and then again it's just basically saying returning you an object with a string called message that says hello, whatever this ends up being. Okay, and then basically there's a catch error. You can literally just do anything here, and you can bring it outside library. So if I wanted to use like Mongoose or Next or some sort of database library to connect up here, I can bring that in there. It basically Netlify will read it and build your function. So you can actually build it to access your database and make a endpoint for doing GET requests or whatever. So that's pretty neat. So let me think here. What do I want to do? I think at this point we'll just let this function act as it is. Now you should be able to serve this locally, if I remember right. It's just with Netlify dev, and this will allow us to, but I need to do this from like the top. Okay, so let's do Netlify dev, so we can serve it locally, and see if that all works. Oh, yep, that's right. This is supposed to be target port. Which reminds me, it's going to ask me for framework. And I need to put custom. Okay, just to get rid of those issues before we get there. Netlify dev. And still not quite. Let's see here. Function, string requirement, argument, dir. Okay, I see. I do need to put the directory here. So let's go back to my package.json, and here we want to serve the Lambda folder. Okay, because see what happens if Lambda folder gets built out, and see there's our sort of compiled version that gets compiled when we run that build command. So package.json, and that should do that. So if I run Netlify dev again runs the build command, and it still doesn't like it. Let's see what it says. Function source folder specified in Netlify lambda serve build command, and publish folder should be different. Oh, okay, so it really wants me to just say function here. Functions. Okay. Netlify dev. And now it looks like we are serving good. And the server is now ready on port 88888. Good, okay, whatever. So let's try that out. And then here, let's take a look at what endpoints we created. So let's see here. So here we see the only entry point we have is for the one function we created is hello world. So let's open up Postman. Postman. Oh wait, that's right, I haven't installed Funny. So let me go over here. Postman. Cool. Now let's just localhost 888. And if you're wondering, I'm running a OS called Pop OS, which is a flavor of Linux by System76. So let's see here, localhost 8888 / hello world. So when I make a request there, I get back hello world, so it works. Huzzah! Okay, so we now know this function works locally. Congratulations. We have a working function. Okay, now we just need to move this to Netlify. So how will we do that? So let me just actually cancel the server out, Control C. And we need to first get set up a Git repository. So git init to create the repository, git add to add everything, git commit -m, first commit. Okay, and now I did not want that to happen. It added everything from the node modules folder. So here's how I'm going to fix that. Let me just go back to my git ignore. Oh, underscore. So let's fix that first. Save. Then I'm going to delete the node modules folder. And let's just fix this. Git add git commit -m. Remove node modules. Okay. Good. So we've committed there. And now what I'm going to do is do an npmi so that can reinstall. And while that reinstalls, I'm going to head over to GitHub. Okay, github.com. We're going to make a new repository. Test Netlify functions. Okay. Test repo for video on Netlify functions. I'm going to create the repository. We're going to do this thing. So basically we're going to add the remote. Then we're going to push it up to the remote, get push origin master. Okay, so now that is on GitHub. And now we need to connect that to connect that repository to Netlify. So let's just double check that it all got pushed up. That looks good. Then I want to head over to netlify.com. Log in. Okay, we're going to click on new site from Git. Connect to my GitHub. Okay, and then scroll down until I find that one, which should be under T. I have a lot of repositories, so let's just do this. Test Netlify functions. Good. Deploy branch, npm run build. Okay, so that all looks the way it should. Let's see if there's anything. We'll come back and play with the variables in a second. Okay, and that'll then build. Let's just wait for the website to build. It takes a second because it's going to build out that function. And then we'll be able to see all the functions that are currently in our project over here with their endpoints. There we go. So if I click on this, see we get hello world because we did the hello world thing. Then if I go to functions, we see there's one function, okay, because basically we configured everything correctly. And if we click on that function, we see the endpoint right over here. Okay, now we can use that endpoint to use that function and as we want. So if I go over here and I just put that endpoint there, I get back the message, hello world. It works, okay? Now let me show you something else. Let's go back over here. Let's go back to settings. Okay, I'm looking for environmental variables. I forget exactly what that particular detail is. Let's go back to overview. I think it's in deploy settings. Deploy contacts, build hooks, deploy key. Here we go, environment. Okay, so environmental variables are variables you're going to want to like hide. You don't want to put it in your code because you don't want it exposed on GitHub. So let's say like API keys, your URLs for your Postgres or Mongo database or something like that. So here in Netlify, you can put them there. So if you were to connect to your database using your function, you could just do this. So we're just going to write one that's called test, and just going to say matches or Just cheese. Let's just make it cheese. Okay, save. So let's use it. Okay, so let's go back to our code. I'm gonna go back to our function, hello world.js, and I'm gonna add another property to our message here. And we're gonna have a new property called test that basically gives us the result. And environmental variables in Node are always process.env, then the name of the variable, which our variable was called test. Okay, so that's going to access the variable. If I run it locally, it won't, because it's looking here for the variable, and I don't have a .env file here. But watch what happens when we push it up to GitHub. Git add. Git commit. Envar. Git push origin master. So now since we connected it, it pushes up to GitHub. It is going to rebuild the website. So let's go back to GitHub. So let's go back to the main page here, overview, and see it's building. It's currently doing the new build. So let's just wait for a moment. That'll automatically update the minute that build is done. And there goes to published. So now if I go back to functions, there's my function. Let's go get the URL again. Whee. Copy. Paste. It's the same URL. And see, now we get tests. And see, the cheese is coming from that environmental variable. I never actually wrote cheese in my code, nor did I ever define that variable. It's defined in the environment. Okay, so that's a way for you to kind of hide sensitive data and how you would do that in Netlify. So with that, that's how you do Netlify functions. So while you can't upload like a full-in backend server like you could, let's say, on Heroku, you can create these functions that do all that stuff. Okay, and you can build all the functionality you want, and they only get used when you need them. That's the beauty of it. Okay, they just do what you need them to do when you need them to do it. You don't have a server that's running all the time. It just gets run whenever you hit that endpoint. And you can build as complicated as a function as you want, and it's free until you really hit sort of really high levels of usage. So otherwise you're in great shape. So my name is Alex Merced. Hopefully this showed you how to use Netlify functions, and have a great day and enjoy.